let's see what other people think about miracles. Because they have experienced miracles. And most of you probably know Trish and Steve Gingras. Trish was one of the first people that I met when I started working here at Our Lady of Big Lake 11 years ago, because she came forward as a catechist, which she had done on a regular basis, because she was always in the room with Gabby, their wonderful daughter. And something that Father Gino said to me right away was, she's famous, she's been on Oprah. So it's like, wow, I get to meet a celebrity. So I've gotten to know their family a lot better through the years, and I think it's just a great family. So I'm excited that they're here to talk to us. So without further ado, we're gonna have them talk to us.
When she says them, Steve means me. He'll correct me though if I go astray.
You keep her on time.
Yeah. Tonight you've probably been talking or at least thinking about some of Jesus' miracles. And those for me were always easy to believe. I've been Catholic my whole life, raised hearing about his stories. But what I think sometimes is harder is to see the miracles around us. And I am one of those who believe, if you believe in God, you do believe in miracles. And sometimes they might be just little bitty ones, but sometimes they're a whole lot more. We've been members here since 1996, before it was Mary of the Visitation, so we've been around a long time. And Steve and I kind of made a commitment when we got married in the Catholic Church that we wanted to be part of it. So we started volunteering from the time we became members, being involved in all the various areas we could. And then of course little kids come along, and now you're in baptism class, now you're in faith formation. But I'd actually been teaching before that. I was teaching long before Barb was here. It was just something I felt passionate about. If I was going to live my faith, I wanted to help children live their faith as maybe a catechist. And so I thank all of you, because I know how hard raising a family, just getting somewhere on time can be. So to make your faith a priority, you really should be commended, because we know it's not easy. You probably already covered this, I think, earlier. We all know what Google says a miracle is. It's divine. It's something that really isn't explainable. And I think sometimes we see Facebook, we see a news story, and we think, oh yeah, that's very miraculous. But it's harder. I think the closer it gets to home, sometimes the harder it is to see that miracle, because Steve and I, exactly like all of you, just trying to work, trying to raise our family, trying to raise good kids, have time for faith and family. And that's really what it's all about. And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And we are here to tell you, at least in our life, we've been the witnesses of 2 major miracles, and I'll try to go and get us out of here on time. I'm going to take you back to 2000. The internet was not what it is today. You could not look things up and get immediate answers, not very easily. And no smartphones. And when my kids thought about that, they went, oh, the horror, no smartphones. So Katie was 3, a little preschooler. Her sister was born in June of that year, and at first seemed rather healthy and normal. And then she cut her first teeth. And she sat there on our kitchen floor with a little toy, and she knocked him out. And the blood gushed down, and I screamed for Steve. I was, what is going on? And she didn't even cry. She was more worried about my reaction to her. Like, wait a minute, something is really wrong with our baby. And it seemed like she never cried about things that other babies would cry about. That's them about that fall of that year, Katie and her little sister. And we knew something was wrong, because now she cuts more teeth. She starts chewing on her fingers, and she would cut down to the bone if we let her. She chewed a couple of them so much they looked like raw hamburger. This is not normal behavior for a baby. Pain should stop her from doing this, and it wasn't stopping her. She chewed her tongue so badly, it got so swollen, she had to be hospitalized. She needed medication for the swelling, she needed IVs to get liquid in her. She couldn't even drink a bottle, it was so swollen. And the whole time, asking these medical people, what is going on with our baby? And they really didn't know. They did a ton of testing those first 6 months, and we finally, that December, ended up in a neurologist's office. And that neurologist took one of the big safety pins, had me get her down to the diaper, and he poked her everywhere on her body, her back, her lower back, her torso, her thighs, her legs, her feet, her hands. Then he took a Q-tip, put it in a little saline, and started touching her eye. And she didn't blink. And Steve and I, we just shook our heads. And poor little Katie, what are you doing to my baby sister? And he's like, don't do that to her at home. And good advice, thanks, Doc. He said she does not feel pain anywhere on the surface of her body. And it's extremely rare. I really can't help you with it, sorry. And oh, I have this little paragraph in my journal. It said life expectancy was 3 years. Really, God gave us this beautiful baby. I didn't like that answer. Neither did Steve. And that was her reality. She doesn't feel pain anywhere on the surface of her body, including her eyes. In her case, she also doesn't sweat. And it was extremely rare. Back then, they said maybe 3 to 20 cases in the world. We now know about 200. And what was rarer still is a child to have this, but not have any cognitive disability. Oh, great. So now I've got a kid who wants to learn and do things like normal, but we have to teach her to keep safe. How do you do that? There were no websites, no support groups, so nobody we could call, no family we could ask, how did you deal with this? We felt truly alone, and our family was far away in Michigan, and we were kind of at our wits' end. And it's at this point that you have to rely on faith. You have to just go through those motions. And I did feel comfort in coming to church, and just the repetition of Mass and the prayers. It was really helpful to me at that time. So that was one of the first times I realized, okay, I need to listen. I need to pray. That helps me. But I did cry myself to sleep that first Christmas. Of course, she ended up in the ER again, knocked a tooth out or something. And I just questioned myself, God, why would you give us this beautiful little life and put it through so much? What kind of future will she have? And I just didn't know. We had to pull a lot of her baby teeth. She just kept doing so much damage to her arms. We would try to restrain her. Well, a little toddler restrained, how do they learn? How do they move? That's not real safe either. There were some days all I did was sit in front of her or crawl after her to try to keep her safe. Again, we knew blindness was a real possibility. Those corneas didn't feel pain. They didn't feel if a little bit of dust got in it. We had to kind of tell her to blink and do this to her so she would copy us. And we noticed a big scratch. And we're petrified. We're just going from one kind of disaster, one thing after another, trying to keep her safe. And they thought, well, let's sew her eyelids shut. Oh, that'll be great. It'll help her heal. I'm thinking this is no good can come of this. Because what does somebody do, a little one that doesn't understand, and she doesn't feel the pain? She ripped the stitches out of her eyelids herself. It was horrifying. And of course, now more damage is happening to those beautiful, precious eyes. About that time, of course, we were now making weekly trips down to the U to try to see what we could do about these precious little eyes. And Steve said, what about swim goggles? Will that work? And the doctor's like, oh, it'll never work. She'll think it's a punishment. Luckily, Steve is not a very good listener, and he doesn't always believe everything people tell him. He went and bought a pair of swim goggles. And we started having her wear those at least for meals, then a little longer. Then Katie, oh, Katie, put your little sunglasses on. Look, Gabby, these are our glasses. These are your glasses. Within the first 2 weeks, the doctor said, what are you doing? I see some improvement. We're doing what you told us couldn't be done. Steve went and got her goggles, and they started to work. But her eyes were still pretty damaged. Her left eye had almost no good vision left in it. It was so destroyed and full of glaucoma. Well, now we're getting to 2002. Katie's ready for kindergarten. We're feeling excited. Gabby feels sick. Some days she's really off. The only thing we can see is a little red mark on her jaw. And one night we're just so frustrated. Let's just take her into children's. So they, she's not crying. She doesn't seem that upset. She seems a little lethargic, but nothing they should worry about. So they take some blood and go away. all of a sudden about 10, 12 people come running back at you. That is never a good sign when that many medical people come running back at you. Turns out she had a severe infection in the bone itself. The bone was broken and they needed to do surgery to fix it. And it was so bad they couldn't do it emergency that night because all they had was an x-ray. They had to heal her. They had to give her a few days of antibiotics to get her healthy enough to put her under for the MRI to get to the problem. So there's poor Katie starting kindergarten. I'm crying because I'm going to be stuck in hospital. And there's poor Steve trying to work and manage all this. And it was that constant fear and that constant, please help us get through this. Help us get her safe. So they sent her home with a little PICC line. It's like an IV, you can wear it home. She was supposed to have it in for several weeks. It lasted 3 weeks, the first one. They put another one in, miraculously. That was almost another miracle because that almost never works. The vein is almost never going to let you do that again. That one lasted about 2 weeks. Finally, they just put her on oral antibiotics. Now we're making weekly trips to another doctor. But it works. That bone starts to heal. The titanium plate is put in her jaw. But what has happened is all those tooth buds that were in there for adult teeth that we thought would come through someday, those are destroyed. They're gone. But she has a jaw. She's getting better. But now what about those eyes? How is she going to learn? How is she ever going to go to school if she can't see? And we just don't know what to do. And we pray, and we get a miracle. National Enquirer. Don't laugh, it's true. We're visiting in Michigan, and Steve's aunt comes running over to us. She goes, I found this in the National Enquirer. It's an article about this amazing doctor in Boston. He's working with children and adults who are blind so much that they need a seeing eye dog, and when he helps them, they can drive a car. And we're reading, look, this sounds really good, but the National Enquirer, really? We'll check it out. So we get home and life, starting to get normal again. Another friend calls, hey, have you seen Oprah? No, not lately, sorry, been a little busy keeping a kid alive, but tell me, there's this amazing doctor in Boston who does the thing with corneas? Yes. Oh, okay. I think God is talking to us. I think he is trying to answer a prayer, and he's got our attention. So we do a little research. Sure enough, Steve's work donates a lot of vacations so we can go, the three of us, take Gabby there. And it was not an easy trip, of course, because it's us. She ends up in the hospital, dehydrated with the flu. We get through that, and we work with these amazing people. And they are making a contact lens, and it's big, and it has a big dome in it. It sits over the white of your eye. And what it does is when you fill it with liquid, that liquid helps the imperfections in that cornea. So when you think of a fish tank, when you look through the top, you can't really see very well in that fish tank, but if you look through the clear glass, now we can see. That's exactly what that lens did for her. And we noticed changes right away. When we would take her to play out in Boston, she could tell boys from girls. That had been very hard for her before. So we knew, but it was still a trial because she couldn't tell us, this feels good on my eye. They actually had to have her wear different styles, different types each day to see what was the best fit. But we were pleasantly surprised, and they sent us home saying, this is going to work. And we didn't realize how much her life had changed until we came to the places she went regularly. The first Sunday back, we're at church up here. We sat in the front because with her poor vision, better to be close to the action. Even if she couldn't always see, she could probably get more out of it in the front. And I go in, you do genuflect, you kneel down to pray at the beginning, and Mom, what, Gabby? That's Jesus' mommy. She's holding him. And it almost always makes me tear up today because that's when it hit me. This really was a miracle. God had given us the hope of saving her vision. And not only was she seeing better, we knew that this could probably help her have a more normal life, which is all we'd ever up until that point, hoped for her. And now we go back to early childhood class I was taking her to, and she walked into the room like she'd never seen it before. There's a rainbow. There's the clock. It was like a whole new world had opened up to her. And we were just so grateful that that miracle happened. And she still wears it today. It's still amazing. Her eye still has that lens to keep it safe and to keep her with, she's legally blind, but it's still better than she would have ever had without that. And that's a picture of her in Boston that fall, and that's the Dr. Rosenthal. And the Boston Foundation for Sight still helps people today. They never turn anyone away. But of course, because she doesn't feel pain, I can't begin to tell you how many times we were in the hospital, kidney infection, oral surgery, broken wrist, broken foot. One day she's driving in the car and she says, my face hurts, and I turn around, there is a lump the size of a golf ball in her cheek. Sure enough, a gland was infected, another surgery, of course, and through it all, Gabby still kept her amazing spirit. She's taught me a lot about patience and tenacity, and she still loves meeting new people. She loves talking about animals, learning about animals, and I've just been so impressed that everything she's been through does not get her down. I remember people would ask me, how can you do it? What do you mean, how can I do it? Look at her. She's worth it. We can do it. But then we got to 2012, and she said, my back feels funny. We went to her pediatrician. She said, oh yeah, her back is broken. Not too worrisome, but you need to see some specialists. And of course, Gillette says, oh yeah, she needs surgery. We need to fuse a bit of her lower spine. And we did that in March of 2013. And they say, well, we want to do this right. We want this to last. Steve looks at the hardware. It's like, whoa, they're like deck screws they're going to put in. This should keep. Yeah, not so much. By 2014, she pulled the top hardware loose, and it was at risk of hitting her nerves inside her spine, and it was too dangerous. They had to take that out. And guess what? By December, it's all gone to heck again. December 2014, she leaves her freshman year of high school on December 11th and never returns. They do emergency surgery many, many hours long. She's in the hospital till about Christmas. Then they send her home 3 months to complete bed rest with just me as her nurse. And the whole time she still wants to do her schoolwork, so she's doing everything she can to keep up with school. And by April, we're back in the doctor's office, and she knows something's not right. She can feel it's not right. And right in front of all of us, he looks at her and he says, oh, there's nothing we can do. Prepare for life in a wheelchair. And then he gets angry at her for crying. I have never been so upset. And Steve, too, we were just looking at each other like, we're getting out of here right now. It was so disheartening. We'd fought so hard, and this is what you're telling us? There's no hope? And you feel broken at that point. You feel, what is there to do? Pray, of course. Think. And we really can't fall apart. We got another daughter graduating in a few weeks and trying to plan her life. But we've got to keep it together. And it comes to us as we go home. We're like, wait a minute. There's this amazing hospital about another hour south of the Twin Cities. Let's go. And it sounds easy. It was difficult, but we got it within 2 weeks. I had all the records sent over, and we were sitting down with a new team of doctors. And they didn't make huge promises, but boy, they had hope. They said, wow, Gabby, you are a challenge. We proposed 3 major surgeries for this summer, and then after those surgeries, you have to lay in bed for 6 months and heal. She's like, really? My friends get to learn to drive, maybe get a first job, and I've missed my whole freshman year. Now you're telling me I gotta lose my life again? And we just explained to her, Gabby, this feels right. This feels like God is calling us to this path for you. These people have hope for you. They have different things they want to do. They think your back is infected. They want to heal that. They want to change the shape of your spine and make it stronger and better. and they want you to have the time to heal where they can keep an eye on you. And she agreed. But the worst part for her was that first surgery scheduled the day after her 15th birthday. So she was inpatient on June 10th of 2015 for that first surgery. And it went well, and they did say everything. They came in and talked to Steve and I, and they said, we couldn't believe it. We pulled all the hardware out by hand. Usually if it's been in the bone a while, you should have to, it just fell out. That's how infected everything was. So they clear up the infection, and I find the chapel at Mayo. And when you think of chapel, you sometimes think of a little hospital room, like a little small space. They might have a cross. No, if you've ever been to St. Mary's, this chapel is like kind of big as at least as our main part of church, if not bigger. It's amazing. And I just kept feeling that this was the path called for us. So of course, now I moved down there, and the first surgery goes well. They're taking care of that infection. We're gearing up for that next surgery. And Steve, all this time, has taken on 2, sometimes 3 jobs, because now I clearly haven't been able to work in a long time. And it kind of divided us. Here's Haley graduating. We missed her party, and we missed the excitement of that. I did get to see her graduate, but it felt divided. We did, even though they did everything they could to visit as often, it was still tough. But that's a picture. It doesn't do it justice. It's marble. It's beautiful, and it feels really amazing. And it was funny. Gabby is despondent, and as hard as this was, it was so funny to see her. Because now she's kind of liking these people, these young nurses that are coming in. Wait a minute, you have a cat. Oh, wait, you have a baby. Can I see a picture? Pretty soon she's making friends with her nurses. There are a ton of doctors coming around on rounds, and she's quizzing them. I remember one day she had a stuffed animal, and the guy said, oh, that's a cute dolphin. She goes, really, a dolphin? I thought Mayo doctors were supposed to be smart. It was a beluga whale, and she was all offended. And I said, Gabby, he knows medicine, not animals. She goes, well, I had higher hopes. And so it was just that personality continuing to come through, but also the visits from family and friends and the prayers from here that really kept us going. So second surgery comes, you guessed it, not that easy. She seemed to lose, when she woke up, all feeling on that left side. They did so much imaging before they even brought her to me, and the poor doctor, she's 8 months pregnant now, and I could just see the worry flowing through her, and she said, everything looks good. We think everything went well. We don't know why. And that peace flew over me again, and I just like, it's okay. I'm going to go pray. We've got this. So they keep her in the ICU. Now she develops pneumonia. Oh yeah, that's a lovely little thing to happen. And I just kept that calm and that hope. And the one night I spent in the chapel, because I was still sleeping with her in the ICU, I didn't go back to Ronald McDonald House, I felt an absolute peace come over me, saying, yes, you are on the right path, but I never said it would be easy. And like a light kind of went off. Oh, all right, I get it. We have to have faith. We just have to keep on. And I hit the chapel like I probably should have hit the gym, but it just works. Everything, she makes a little progress. It's never easy, but we make progress. And after that second surgery, and once we were out of ICU, I didn't really doubt. I just kept feeling that peace and that faith come through. But some days were hard. Some days I needed every note of encouragement, every letter. I don't think there were more than 3 days of 8 months that we spent down there that I didn't get a card from somebody at Mary the Visitation, from the youth group, from a parishioner, from somebody. And sometimes it was beautiful flowers, sometimes it was gifts, but even the little notes were just full of hope. And even if Gabby couldn't appreciate them, I sure did. But after 6 months, lying in the hospital bed, not even getting up to use the restroom. 6 months. We're now at Thanksgiving. And let me tell you, the food at Mayo, not so good. Gabby is not eating. But she's not moving. And the doctors, they're getting worried. We've tried a few things, it's just not working. And they decide to make this supportive brace and let her start to get sitting up, trying to teach herself to sit up again. She's been laying there for 6 months. She's got no muscles left. They make a beautiful brace that supports her neck all the way to her hips. And she starts to learn to sit again. And that first time was agonizing. She wasn't sitting at a 90-degree angle, maybe just like this. And I don't know what she can do, but it was hard for her, whatever she did feel. And that first time, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Next day, maybe a minute and a half. And it just kept building like that. It went like that with learning to sit. Then learning to stand. Because now she can sit. She's learning to put weight on her feet. That was agonizing. I would read these crazy teen sci-fi novels to her, and then her PT ladies would argue over who got to come so they could keep up with her story, because it was the only thing that could keep her mind off, because whatever she was feeling, remember, she doesn't feel the pain like we feel. So we don't know what she was feeling, but it was agonizing those first weeks of learning to, and she wasn't at a 90-degree, she wasn't standing up, she was kind of tilted, trying to get weight on her feet, but every day making that progress. And behold, one day she stands up in her room and takes 4 steps with her walker. I'm like, you're moving to PT, you're moving to rehab. Really? Almost 8 months. We get to move to the rehab? That was huge. We were kind of excited. We kind of got sick of that view out of the room. And in 2 weeks, she learns to do everything she needs to do to move safely home. We move home. Now her goal is get away from me. She needs to do that PT so she can go back to school. In April of 2016, she goes back to school for the first time in a year and a half, practically. And she is the happiest kid in Big Lake High School. Most kids in April, end of April, they are ready to be done. Gabby was so excited. She was so happy to be there. And she finishes that year, and I think by the end of the year, she wasn't even using a wheelchair to move from class to class anymore, just assistance with a friend in a walker. She finished with a 3.7. She had an awesome junior year in the spring. She graduated, and I'm happy to report that she has just finished her first semester at the University of Minnesota Morris, and she's studying environmental policy. So if you want to talk to her, ask her about animals, ask her about wild animal policy, and don't tell her she's the miracle, because she said, I'm not the miracle. I said, no, the amazing people that helped you are the miracle. But we truly believe those 2 events have absolutely been miraculous in her life. And if you hear somebody, feel free to share our story and say, no, I know this family. They've seen miracles and experienced miracles, because God absolutely changes our lives through faith and prayer. So we're happy to take any questions if anybody has them, but I know your kids are getting done. But if you have any.
But we still have some time.
Okay. Well, I know, but
Yeah.
it's harder to
We
read.
have 3 minutes.
But we're happy. If you have any questions, we're not embarrassed.
Did she ever get her teeth?
Surgery on Monday to build up the bone here, because that infection kind of destroyed all those adult teeth. That was one of her dreams someday, to have teeth. So Monday she goes in for a major surgery. They're actually taking bone from both hips and trying to fill in here, and they'll do kind of the implant where the teeth will hopefully sit someday. So maybe by the time she starts college next fall, she might have them. We'll see. So more prayers. You're so welcome. Really? You guys are easy. Usually
I just want to get out of here.
I know, but usually we get really weird
I think
questions.
that the story and how you presented was just so astonishing and so touching that, I think that you guys are just a couple of wonderful people that, just kept your faith and kept the hope and just kept on moving forward regardlessly, relentlessly. And
You would too. When it's your kids, you do anything. And we're not that special.
Yeah.
Gabby will tell you.
Some people couldn't believe that we kept going and didn't quit. Didn't know that was an option. And everybody in this room would do the same thing too. I mean,
When you love.
push forward and do whatever you can do to help get where you want to go.
Don't give up. God's right behind you. He's got your back. Doesn't always feel like it, believe me, but He is there.
So another miracle is that one of the first articles that, as you said, we were on Oprah and we did a couple other shows, but one of the first articles about Gabby was written by a parishioner of the church in a little local paper, and it got seen by a producer for Care 11. That ended up being the first Care 11 story that went to the rest of their sister stations around the country. That led to many other calls and other things, and we started meeting other people. Remember she said there was only 3 people in the world that had that condition? The doctors actually told us they were in China, we'd never meet them. So through the activity of someone in this church, we got to be exposed to a wider world. We've met over 200 families now, and we started a foundation to help them. We've had those parents tell us that if it wasn't for us and the foundation, that they or their child wouldn't be alive today. So I mean, to me, that's the third miracle too. That we help, we can take what we've learned and what other people learned and help other people too. And we find another member about once a month now that we add to our group. And they're just so pleased to be able to meet somebody else that's walked the path that they have to walk already, that they don't know what they're going to encounter yet, or to talk to somebody that's already dealt with that.
Yeah, that's the one thing I used to pray for. Like that first Christmas, I cried myself to sleep. Like if there were only somebody, and there were, we just couldn't meet back then. It was the whole timing of the internet and the media exposure, and then becoming a group. And now one of the families hosts a camp down in Georgia every fall. And so we've actually got to face-to-face meet many of the U.S. families.